Hey Hawks, today we are going to learn about not just one, but 2-point perspective. What? Boom. Yes, that's right, 2-point perspective, two vanishing points. Now the idea of perspective, linear perspective, has been around for a long time. It's a centuries-old mathematical way of trying to create realistic three-dimensional space that's consistent using a particular set of rules. We learned about 1-point perspective last week, and that's been around since the Renaissance period. For example, Raphael painted this picture here, called The School of Athens in 1509. And we can see it's a very typical example of 1-point perspective. Everything is going to one point in the middle of the painting. The walls, the arches, even the tiles of the floor are all going to one point. Later on, we see examples of painters using 2-point perspective. For example, in this painting here by Gustave Caillebotte, it's a Paris street in the rain painted in 1877. We can see the man and the woman in the foreground are using the laws of 1-point perspective, and we can see how the sidewalk is going to one point behind the man's right shoulder. But if we check out that building in the background, it is following another law. There's actually a second vanishing point back there, and the building is going to a vanishing point on the left and on the right. And so this painting is using 2-point perspective to create its sense of space. Follow the exercise that I've provided and practice 2-point perspective on your own. Grab a ruler, white eraser, optional, pencil, and if you've got it, a black fine tip marker. Follow the video with me, copy what you see, and if you need to pause it at any time, that's fine. We're going to take our ruler with the paper horizontal or landscape orientation. We're going to draw a line horizontal across the page. Try as best you can by eye to make that horizon line parallel to the sides of the page. We're going to label it horizon line. And on each ends of the horizon line, we're going to create two vanishing points. Put a little dot or X on the right-hand side. We'll call that VP. And then put a little dot or X on the left-hand side of your horizon line, and we'll call it VP, short for vanishing point, and we've got two of them. Now, take your ruler, and down in the right bottom corner below our horizon line, take your ruler and make a vertical line. Try to make sure that it's not tilting to the left or the right, but it's generally 90 degrees, sticking up, straight, or parallel to the sides of the paper. Yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine, but something like that. Now, we're going to create a series of guidelines, imagining that this line, this very first line that we drew, is the front edge of our imaginary three-dimensional 2-point perspective cube. After we've drawn that, we're going to join the the bottom of this line to the VP and the top of the line to the VP, like that. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Bottom of the line goes to the VP, and the top goes to the VP. It looks something like this. Now, we're going to draw what we want to be the back edge of this imaginary three-dimensional 2-point perspective cube. I'm going to draw a line right here, It's vertical. In other words, it will be parallel to that first front edge we drew. All of the lines that we draw vertically in our two-point perspective world are always parallel to each other, always going straight up and down. The other lines that go to the VPs, they're always at an angle depending on where the VPs are. Here's the imaginary back of my cube. All right, so draw yourself two parallel lines parallel to that very first edge or line that you drew. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine, but something like this. Now, to finish off the two-point perspective, this is where it gets a little bit different than one-point perspective, and sometimes this next step throws people off. It's not a big deal once you get the hang of it, but we're going to join the back ends of our cube to the VPs. But it's going to be like kind of the opposite or switcheroo corner. So the right corner of this imaginary cube over here is going to go to the left VP. This corner of the back of the cube will go to the right VP. Let's join those up. Right corner to left VP. Left corner to the right VP. You can see here how a three-dimensional looking cube that follows the laws of two-point perspective is right there. Next step is take a Sharpie marker and then outline the cube itself, and if you want to erase the guidelines or minimize the guidelines, you can. I'd like you to have something like this at the end. Show 3 or 4 cubes above and below the horizon line. And notice how the look of those cubes, right, will change, and they will appear that we're looking down on them, or the ones above the horizon line will appear as though they're floating in the air and we're looking up at a cube floating in space. However you want to arrange them, they don't have to be the same placement as mine, but give it a shot. Outline them with either dark pencil, fading those guidelines, or a black fine tip marker, fading the guidelines, and kind of just work it out. I'd like you to take a photograph of yourself holding this, showing either part or all of your face, and this is one of our steps that we will complete for the two-point perspective unit.